Good evening, everybody. Hello, this is Mr. B. This is POLI-Ticking with Mr. B. Welcome, everybody. I'm very glad to have you coming in. We've got our engineer, Blazeman, who's behind pushing the buttons and whizzing and buzzing and Googling and Boogling and everything else that has to do. We've got a show to do this evening, and we have a very with it. All right, this evening. This All right. I hope we've got these things worked out. We've been having a little problems with connection issues. I'm sorry about it. We have a very special guest this evening and a very special subject matter. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be discussing about domestic violence, male victim survivors of domestic violence. Before we get any further into this, though, Blazeman, you know what to do. Run up the colors. We've got a show to do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And it stands for all people, and I'm very glad for it. I'm very glad to say that I have family members, including my father, who did an awful lot to protect it and defend it and gave sacrifices of their time, of their wisdom, of their minds. And we thank all of the people. So, that having been said, ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, I do want to take a moment and say that I have some updated news that has come up very recently. We spoke last night on our program that we were with the way we see it, and I'd mentioned about what had happened overseas. Apparently, in Libya, there had been some drastic rains and 2 levees that let go, and now the death toll is up. Over 6,000 people were lost, and they fully expect it to rise. I just wanted to recognize the situation that's going over there and let the people know that truly my thoughts and all of our thoughts and all of our prayers reach out to these people. To do that, the people, God help them, because Lord knows, sitting here we can't. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very difficult situation going on, and that situation is domestic violence. Male victims are definitely, or truly, in historical times, have not been treated equally. And that is changing. But we have with us a person, and I myself am a male surviving victim of domestic violence. We have with us a gentleman who's going to bring in Mr. Blazeman. If you could usher the fellow in, he's not going to be able to be on camera, but we will have him. His name is Brian. If we could do that, please. Brian, how are you this evening? Are you able to hear and speak with us? Hello, Brian. Mr. Blazeman, I think we have some sort of a technical issue that's going on here. I'm not able to hear. Are you able to? Blazeman, I think we have some sort of a technical issue that's going on here.
Brian, if you can hear,
I'm not able to hear. Are you able to? Blazeman, I think we have some sort of a technical issue that's going on here. I'm not able to hear. Are you able to? Blazeman, I think we have some sort of a technical
things of that
issue that's
nature.
going on here.
I'm
not able to hear. Are you able to, Lisbon, I think we have some sort of issue that's going on here.
Liz, I'm getting a terrible feedback here. Hello? Brian Alcanic, I'm sorry, I'm not able to receive. If our guest, unfortunately, is speaking, I am not hearing it. Apparently, we're having some technical difficulty. I will go on to something. There is some information that I have received. I've done a little background looking. Now, a number of years ago, back in, I'm not going to say exactly when it was, but it was somewhere around '05. When I was separating from my wife because of the situation that I had reached out, and this was in the state of Massachusetts. I had reached out to an agency looking for services, some help, some assistance, some guidance, maybe some support. And literally, I was gobsmacked verbally by the people that I had contacted. Back then, I'd called the people and I had said to them that I was a male victim of domestic violence, and I'm looking for some assistance. And I was met with a very curt retort, which said, in a nutshell, that I'm a male and males don't suffer domestic violence. It's the woman, and we only service women. And if I think I've had something happen to me, then it's my own fault, and I'm on my own. And then the phone literally disconnected almost immediately after that. I was outside. I was alone. I didn't know which way to turn. Well, apparently things finally, from what I've been finding, I've been looking into and trying to come up with, I've been finding that these things have been corrected. There is a national domestic violence hotline, and I've got the phone number for anybody: 1-800-644-3574 is a national domestic violence hotline that if you call it and you talk with the people, they will be able to pinpoint an area where you are and get you in contact and get you services. They don't care if you are female, male, straight, gay, transgender, bigender, intergender, bisexual, homosexual, whatever it is. If you are a person, if you are a human being who is in need of services, these people I'm told, will reach out and help you. And I've done some speaking with them on a local level, and I'll be very honest with you, I was quite pleased with what I did. I contacted a place here in New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, a service agency called Crisis Center of New Hampshire. Now, in New Hampshire, the way they do it is they have several different service agencies, crisis centers, or domestic violence assistance centers that they have. All of them have their own little, if you will, districts, which sort of closely follow the lines for the larger surrounding areas like Rockingham County and Coos County and Merrimack, whatever county they have. It follows the county lines pretty much. But if you call the national hotline, they will pinpoint whatever else. If you call a local hotline that they have, the one for the Crisis Center of New Hampshire is 603-225-7376. If they are not in the area that you're seeking services for, they can certainly help you, reach out to you, find the service area, and get you to it and get the services to you. And again, they ardently stressed to me that it didn't matter whether you were male, female, bigender, transgender, intergender, homosexual, polymorphic, sexual, whatever it was, whatever you are, if you're a human being in need of services because of domestic violence or worse, or rape, assaults, things of that nature, they can get you the services that you need. Now, I'm told that I believe we may have worked out our issues with the technical difficulties we've been having. Mr. Blazeman, can we try and bring our guest Brian in, please?
Let's give it a shot, Mr. B. How are you?
Brian, God bless you. Thank you very much. How are things down where you are?
Well, things are very good here in sunny Florida.
It's funny, not a lot of water flying around.
No, thank goodness. But we're on guard at this time of year. This is peak hurricane season, so this is when we have to really be ready.
And you are a busy man in the kind of work that you do, so we know we don't want to tie you up with a lot of things. By the way, say hello to our friends here, Agnes, the angry chicken mug.
Hi, Agnes.
This is a special time. Brian, yourself, do you mind if we go into what some of your background is, my friend?
Sure. I'm a broadcaster of 26 years. Been doing various forms of radio broadcasting over that time. I've lived in several states, New England, the Mid-Atlantic, now the Deep South. And right now I'm doing only radio work part-time. I'm doing mostly gig work now, food and grocery deliveries. And that is a lot of fun. I gotta say.
Very respectable. It pays the bills and it helps other people. And I know that you're about that. I know that's very much what you're about. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to make a small disclosure. I've known Brian for a great number of years, even back when he was back. I forget what the station was that you were on down in Connecticut.
Yes. That's right. I was on a college station, actually.
That's right. Well, I'm dating myself here, so I don't want to go that far.
Actually, I was on more than just a college station, but that's where I did my talk show. I did a news outlet also in Connecticut. So, yeah.
So you're very well practiced. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of fairly pointed questions.
Yes.
I want to get into this subject the best we possibly can. You were married in a heterosexual relationship, correct?
Correct. For 23 years.
For 23 years. Was there any indication that something like this was going to happen? I mean, did this start out originally, or did it come on later on in the relationship? What happened?
So, I ignored a lot of red flags very early on in the relationship. And I want to get into some of these points of how men have been led to believe that when a woman hits you, it's perfectly okay. Whether that's a punch in the arm, a smack across the face, we're not supposed to react. We're supposed to look the other way. And this actually goes back to my teenage years when the guys were always the villains, always talking about dating violence, and it's always the guy who's going to rape the woman. Now, that's what we were all ingrained with in the public school system. And that continues into adulthood. So when these things happen, and domestic violence can happen in so many different, it comes in so many different forms. I'm just talking physical right here, but
Right.
There's also emotional. There's narcissistic abuse. I consider narcissistic abuse to be a form of domestic violence. I really, really do.
I would tend to agree with you there. And I want to say it's not just narcissistic. There's verbal abuse, emotional abuse that goes along with it. And it can start off so easily, like so much. With me, it started off with, oh, you're hanging your shirts in the wrong direction in the closet. You can't hang them that way. You have to do this way. And then things get a little more and they force more and more. Did this happen? I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, it's okay. It's perfectly okay. And so just during the years, then conflict began. She began abusing alcohol. Then it went on to having an affair. And, these are all things that I've either put up with or ignored or went to counseling. We did lots of counseling and thought, okay, this issue is fine, but it was just putting sand over the mess for a short period of time, and then it would reappear. Well, finally, it was actually about a year ago this month. She had a full-blown affair with a coworker. And immediately when I found out the details of it, then it was like, that's it. It's over. I filed for divorce. And the divorce process was extremely hostile.
Can I
Go ahead.
pull brakes a little bit here? I want to step back a little bit here.
Yes.
Somewhere along the line, I don't want to mention names or else, but you do have children together, correct?
2 children. Yes.
Okay. Did anything change when those issues came up when the children came into the picture?
No, it wasn't until about 10 years into our marriage that problems started occurring.
Okay.
You know, the alcohol abuse started manifesting itself. And, it's really, really difficult to deal with someone who uses alcohol to cope with whatever stresses in life that they're dealing with. A lot of it is hiding pain from their childhood. And that was the case here, that I firmly believe that a lot of these issues that she was drowning with alcohol were issues that happened before I ever came into her life, but yet I got blamed for it. So, these are just all the tensions that just build up over time. And there were times where she'd wake up in the middle of the night having a bad dream and just start pounding on me, like hitting me, punching me. And it's like, why? What did I do? That kind of thing. Or we're driving down the road. One time, Jeff, this was in New Hampshire. We're driving down a road and she started just punching me for whatever reason. And I said, if you don't stop, I'm going to dump you right here on the side of the road and you can walk home. And it was in the middle of nowhere.
and there was no precursor, anything at all that you could possibly think of that would have led up to this. She just had this outburst.
I don't recall the details leading up to it, and that's
okay.
That's the honest truth right now, because there's so many things that I've been able to block out of my mind for so long, and that's why telling this story here today is really a big step for me, because while a lot of things have been said behind everybody else's back, telling the story about what it's like to actually be a victim of domestic violence, which came to a head resulting in her arrest several months ago, which Jeff, you know about. I've shared with you some details and some of the evidence of what had happened on that particular night, and it was in the midst of our divorce process. And I was concerned in the weeks leading up to that incident. I knew something bad was about to happen. And I was trying to remove myself from situations where she would be there. And one of them happened to be my daughter's dance recital. And I didn't want to be anywhere near that. I knew that, and I kept warning people. I was telling my best friend. I was telling my own lawyer. I was telling everybody I could think of, something bad is about to happen. I know it, and I can't stop this. And I need your guys' help. And nobody would help me. So on the night of April 28th, it happened. I got called over to her house for a child that was non-responsive in the bathroom. She had locked herself in the bathroom, and I had feared the worst. And I said, I asked, did you call 911? She did not. And so I said, then did you break down the door? And she couldn't understand. She was drunk. She couldn't follow a simple request to knock down the door. I said, then I'll come over there and knock it down myself. And I did. I went in with her permission. I busted down the door. And then
now you got her permission to do it.
Yes, I did, because I had never any intentions of ever going to her house. Here's what happened. While I was on the way to the house with this situation unfolding, I was on the phone with 911 telling them what was happening and what was going to happen if they didn't get there first. So I was already covering my butt on that. And my my fears, Jeff, I thought my daughter had killed herself. That's why I raced over there. And I had never been in this house. I had no idea what this house looked like on the inside. I didn't know the layout. I didn't know if anybody else was there. I did not know what I was walking into, but I knew my daughter was potentially in trouble. And I let the sheriff's office know what was going on, what I suspected. And then I busted down the door, and there's my daughter unresponsive on the floor. Luckily, she was okay. She had passed out.
I want to ask you something. This is very important for people to know about. When you were on the phone with the 911 people, when you were on talking with the law enforcement, what did it seem like to you? Did it seem like that they were trusting in what you were saying, or did it seem as though you were feeling as though you were instantaneously being considered as the perpetrator of the crime?
No, I felt that they were listening and that they were sending help. And it was a matter of who was going to get there first. And they did ask me to call them back if the situation changed, because I arrived at the house. We disconnected the call. I got in there. Long story short, she started yelling and cussing at me when I asked what was going on here. As I don't understand this. There's something. The child is fine. Why is she asleep on the bathroom floor? Why isn't? And then she started cussing at me. I said, "That's it. I'm out." So I started to remove myself from the house. She blocked my path from leaving. And then, long story short, I'm out in the street. She's chasing after me, trying to hit me. And this is where, gentlemen, I need you to understand this perfectly clear. You need to train yourself for every type of situation possible. And you do that in your head by what do you do in the event of conflict, potential conflict. And this is self-defense, just basic self-defense stuff. Witnesses, ear witnesses, there's a lot more of them than there are eyewitnesses. I hosted a radio show where we talked about these types of scenarios, what to do when you are confronted by somebody who intends to harm you. And this was in relation to concealed carry of firearms. It was a Second Amendment related issue, but this carried over into this situation. This was a tight neighborhood with a lot of neighbors. I used my voice to draw attention to the situation. Back up, leave me alone. Get away. Back up. Back up. And the whole time I'm moving down the street trying to get away from her. And I'm using my voice. Now neighbors are coming out of the houses. They're seeing, now the 911 calls start pouring in, right? And then a neighbor tried to intervene. Neighbor realized she wasn't getting anywhere with her. Then next thing you know, she gets into my car to try to drive off. I yelled for her to get out of the car. She got out of the car, and that's when she hit me. And then I tried to leave to get down.
What did she hit you with?
Her fist.
So she hit you with a closed fist.
Yes.
She decked you. I remember this part of the story, and I remember that you didn't feel too good when that happened, I'm sure.
Well, I was more shaken up than anything. I mean, there was fortunately no injuries to me. I defended myself by hitting her back once to knock her on the ground, to deflect the threat, and to remove myself from the situation. As I attempted to drive down the street, she blocked the road. That's where I parked the car, locked my doors, had the windows rolled up, called 911 again. And that's where the deputies found us, found her blocking my path out of there. They went and talked to her. They came over and talked to me. I was calm as a cucumber when I talked to them. That fact made it into the arrest report. They said the victim was calm. That's important, Jeff, because everybody focuses on the male reaction to anything, whether it's an argument, whether it's an assault like this. If they focus on the male's reaction. I was calm. All the neighbors. Now, the eyewitnesses told a different story. We couldn't get the battery charge to stick, but the assault charge did, because she did come after me. But everybody heard the same thing. This is where I say ear witnesses, there's more of them than there are eyewitnesses, because the ear witnesses all told the same story. He tried to get away. He told her to get back. She didn't do it. He told her repeatedly, that kind of thing. That did make it into the arrest report.
I'm going to ask you this. This is a very important question, my friend. If those ear witnesses weren't there, what do you think would have happened?
It would have all depended on what she told the responding deputies. Would she have admitted to charging after me, to trying to hit me, or to actually hitting me? She actually did. She actually did admit it. But
Wow.
we just don't, not everybody is fortunate to have that type of situation. I had video. I took out my phone and I started recording the moment I knew that I could not get out of this situation. And thank God I did.
Okay. Folks, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to take about a 3.5-minute break. In about 5 seconds, we'll be back. We're talking with Brian, domestic violence, male survivors. We'll be right back.
Holding on to each other, miss the last bus on foot to get home. I miss the town, rowdy and clever, all at once undercover, blowing kisses to the shop windows as we go. We stayed out playing past midnight. That was years ago. Now something just ain't right. Better take it slow.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here, politicking with Mr. B. We are speaking this evening with a fellow who's been in broadcasting for many, many years, and we are speaking about a situation that he has had, and I myself have had as well, that a number of people go through and they never know about. Surviving male victims of domestic violence. We've got a video I'd like to show you, come on, that ironically has nothing to do with our guest this evening. It is something also that happened in Florida. Mr. Blazeman, if you've got that, can we get that up and running, please? I believe we're having a bit of a difficulty with the sound. Are we there? No, I believe we're having some technical difficulties again with the sound. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. We are having some problems with the sound. We'll get back to that as quickly as we can. In the meantime, why don't we bring in our guest again? Brian, why don't you come on in? We'll get started with our discussion, and we can probably get to that video.
Telling the media at an August news conference all the signs were there. This fight in an elevator with Clenny and her boyfriend Christian Ambuseli is key evidence, along with constant noise complaints about violence.
It was a homicide.
In St. Petersburg, August 19th, Larry Jarrell is found inside the apartment he shared with his partner, Rhiannon Spicer, an eerily similar case where police say Jarrell was stabbed to death, the complaint showing that Spicer had a, quote, Google search history of, do you spend life in prison if you killed someone in self-defense?
Our advocates often have a very tough time that sometimes in abusive relationships, sometimes it happens within a 24-hour period that we'll get both partners in the relationship that reach out to us for help.
Christine Meister is the outreach program manager at the Spring of Tampa Bay. She did not comment on these two specific cases, but spoke in general about what she's experienced when it comes to domestic violence involving men as victims.
People look at men when they're the victims and they make the assumption that the man did something wrong. And there's a reason why they were the victim of domestic violence. Is that accurate?
So I think a lot of times when men are victims, they face additional biases, and a lot of that has to do with gender norms. Men have this expectation to be tough, to be more dominant in that relationship. And so when a man comes forward and says, no, this is what I'm experiencing in my relationship, I don't feel safe in this relationship, my partner is abusing me, or I have this coercive control, other people think, well, then you must not be a man.
Data reinforces that skepticism about men as victims. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 72% of all murder-suicides involve an intimate partner. 94% of the victims of these murder-suicides are female, and 1 in 4 women, compared to 1 in 9 men, experience severe intimate partner physical violence.
Our advocates have that very tough time of, let's put gender aside and really take a look at what is happening in this relationship.
Documents show Spicer was arrested in November 2021 for domestic violence, again just weeks before Jarrell was found dead. No contact orders were also in place. In February, court records show that Jarrell was also arrested for domestic violence and pleaded no contest. The couple had 3 children together, and since Spicer's arrest, police still have more questions than answers, Spicer invoking her right to remain silent.
Every act of violence in a relationship is always an act of domestic violence. Those words, domestic violence, should have a decidedly ugly feel to them.
Back in Miami, authorities say they found no evidence to Clenny's claim that Ambuseli was the aggressor.
There's no physical evidence that led us to believe that she was actually physically harmed in any way.
No matter what, everyone agrees someone should or could have done something to stop it.
Men are often, unfortunately, unwilling to come forward as victims of domestic violence, or of intimate violence, that is sometimes called. the sequence of domestic violence events can be broken.
How do we come together as a society to fix this issue of domestic violence that keeps recurring?
From one aspect, you can look at it that we need to teach what healthy relationships look like in the first place. It's about recognizing that domestic violence is everybody's problem.
In St. Petersburg, Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.
Well, there we have it. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to say welcome to, we have someone who made a couple of comments here. Good evening to Miss Lawler. That's a young lady, I believe, was in Waldoboro, Maine. Thank you very much for coming in. And she mentioned that what the person we were just seeing, what she stated is fact is fact. What she said is facts. And we appreciate the comment. Thank you very much. Keep them coming. Brian, you have a direction you wanted to go in discussing. Please, by all means, let's open it up. I'd love to hear from you what you've got to say.
Well, that video was also very good, Jeff, and what everybody said, and that is true. What the lady at the Springs says is 100% fact, so Jesse is absolutely correct also. And the state attorney from Miami-Dade County, Florida is also 100% correct. Jeff, depending upon what state you live in, victims do have rights. And thank God Almighty, I live in Florida, because Florida has victim rights written into the state constitution and has been for a very, very long time, many, many decades, as a matter of fact. And that's also backed up by state statute and is also enforceable in a court of law. So the night that my abuser was arrested, I was given a victim's rights pamphlet by the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. And
Wonderful.
In there, it's just a little thumbnail sketch as to my summary of my constitutional rights, but it's also a lot of new and good information. And among that is, of course, to be present and to be heard at every step of the judicial proceedings. The state attorney's office must consult with you before they cut any deals or any testimony, things like that, which is great. Now, it doesn't mean they have to do what you say or request, but they do have to consult with you. And thank goodness I was able to, my state attorney's office has a victim advocate. I worked very closely with the victim advocate on this case, and I got their attention. I did have to ring some bells along the way to make sure everybody, paid attention to this, but I was my own advocate too at the same time.
It sounds as though you had a tremendous amount of strength and courage, and I know, Brian, I'm going to touch on this a little bit. You are a person of tremendous personal faith, and I want to ask, how did that play into this?
My faith played into a lot of things through the divorce process. While people can let you down, God doesn't. God let me see who I really am from the inside. God showed me that I am somebody, that I am special, that I am his child, and I am his servant. And as such, it's very humbling. And it made me feel that I had value where I thought I had none because of the toxic relationship that I was in, because I felt that nothing I ever did was good enough. But I know in God's eyes, I am. And I also have a very strong church family, too, that was there for me throughout this process.
Very important, very important. So please continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. You were going on about the victims' rights and so forth. I'd love to hear more of your walk through all of this.
Yeah. So really what happens is, and the sheriff's office has a victim advocate as well. I talked to that victim advocate. That victim advocate can put you in touch with free counseling services. In one, I was referred to a faith-based counseling service, and there's other ways that they can help you with shelter, with whatever. And also, you work closely with these victim advocates because they help you to navigate the legal process. They can even be there with you when depositions are taken. They will be there with you at various stages along the way, as much as you need them or as little as you need them. They're there. Now they're worked very hard. Don't get me wrong. This is not a concierge service. They're busy. They have a very heavy workload. But
can I ask you
here's the thing,
something?
Jeff? Anybody who has been a victim of domestic violence has rights under the law. And in a lot of states, they do. They may vary, to some degree, but Florida, I think, has very strong victims' rights, and it worked perfectly in my case.
Awesome. I want to ask you something. If we can step back to something you broached about depositions.
Yes.
I would expect that the opposing counsel had deposed you or asked some rebuttal questions of you. Is that correct?
So what usually happens ahead of a trial, and this did not happen in my case. My case, it never went to trial. It went to a pretrial diversion program, which I was okay with, and I can explain that in a minute too. The deposition, and this was explained to me by the victim advocate. So obviously, the accused has a right to a lawyer. That's their right. And that lawyer has the right to ask you questions ahead of a trial known as a deposition. And that's where they take a recorded statement from you. And they're trying to find holes in your story is what they're trying to do. And, so that's their job. That's fine. That's the way the system works. But the victim advocate can be there with you through that process. The victim advocate can help you to stay focused on the questions that may come up, what may even be a proper way to answer those questions, because some people may just ramble on or whatever. And that's the problem. A lot of people can get tripped up very easily over their own words. So it's just very good that they're there to help you through that scary process, because it really can be scary. In the case of the person who assaulted me, who's now my ex, the divorce has been finalized. The state attorney's office called me one day and said, okay, the other side is looking for a deal. And let's face it, this is her first arrest. She's probably not going to get jail time. So we're looking at a couple of options here, either straight up probation or a pretrial diversion program. Now, luckily, Jeff, through my radio work and through various interviews I've done with the state attorney's office at that time, I knew what pretrial diversion was. I said, let's talk about those conditions. And this is where the rubber really hit the road in my case. The pretrial diversion was basically you take domestic violence intervention courses, drug and alcohol testing, and pay a bunch of fines and fees and do community service. I got some additional things added in there that the state attorney advocated for me in front of the judge and got every single condition I asked for.
Outstanding.
That included a no contact order, because I was on the fence about getting a domestic violence injunction against her. That would have created a lot of problems because we do share custody of a minor child, 50-50, week on, week off. There's events that the child wants us to go to. She's involved in various extracurricular activities. It would have prevented, the other parent from attending the same events. And so I was fine with getting the conditions about the pickup and drop offs of the child, that there's no contact. Everybody stays in their house and in their car. Nobody gets out. Nobody even pulls into each other's driveway. The child comes and goes. Communication is limited to issues only affecting the child. So I was able to get these things in there. she's going to have to pay hundreds of dollars in fines. She's going to have to pay hundreds of dollars in court fees. She's going to have to pay for every single drug and alcohol test at random at her own expense. She's going to have to pay for the substance abuse evaluation and any recommended follow-up treatment. She has to, report to her pretrial diversion officer every month about the progress that she's making, the community service that she's doing, the however many hours of community service, 25 hours. I'm looking at it right here. So these are things, this is all part of a justice system, Jeff. And this is why I want people to understand. Justice is not just about sending somebody to jail. It can be about rehabilitation, correcting their behavior. And it was a lot for me. Yes, would I have liked to see her in jail, serve some time for what she did? Yes. But at the same time, this is a program that if she completes it, she could be successful and maybe turn her life around and get off the alcohol and hopefully become a better parent and the whatnot and leave me alone.
God bless you. There should be a lot more people in this world like you.
I want people to understand, Jeff, if I may. I want people to understand, men particularly, you do have rights in this process. And, you really need to watch your P's and Q's. And that means your reaction to things is what so many people are going to judge you on. People asked me, well, what did you do to contribute to that?
Right.
And, it's like, no, I didn't. I was trying to help a child in distress. That's what I was trying to do. But here's the thing, Jeff. I want people to be encouraged. If you are in this violent situation or any kind of like a narcissistic abusive relationship, you need to get out. Number one, come up with a plan, get out, develop a strong support network of friends, family, church, and the like. There's Facebook pages that can help people with these kinds of things. Just start searching for it. This stuff will come up and you'll be flooded with results on this.
We've got less than 10 minutes left. I want to ask you this, and you're not going to like me if I ask you this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Sometimes you got to ask the questions. You know this. Personally, when you're at home in the dark of the night and you're in the middle of all of this and the thoughts are running through your head and you're looking at yourself, what are the things that you're feeling about yourself? I'd like to hear your answer to that.
Are you talking about right now or are you talking about in the past?
When this was going on?
Oh, God. A lot of sleepless nights, Jeff. A lot. A lot of things racing through my head. How am I going to survive this? I'm going to tell you the truth, Jeff. I didn't think I was going to survive. My health was badly affected by what was going on. My blood pressure was through the roof. I was having very bad thoughts. My mind was going into dark places because I felt that I wasn't worth anything. And I didn't think anybody would ever want to be with me because I had felt that bad about myself. I was made to feel that way by my abuser. Again, luckily, I was able to see differently. Thank God, particularly. Faith is important.
I do remember speaking with you on a number of occasions when you were in the throes of the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And I sorry if I stirred up something.
It's okay. It's all right. But here's the good news, Jeff. I'm here today. Here's the good news, Jeff. I sleep well at night now. I'm in a very healthy relationship with a beautiful woman. A woman who treasures me for who I am. And we just had a conversation yesterday. She says, I don't want you to change anything about yourself. There is no reason for you to change for anything or anybody. You know how good that made me feel?
Oh, but
because
I'll bet.
she lets me be me. And it is so liberating. These people are out there, Jeff. For men that are going through this, don't let anybody drag you down. There are people out there that will hold you up. There is life after divorce. I see it over and over again with members of my own family, with friends, with other people at church even. There's no shame in it. Don't be ashamed of what is happening to you. It's not your fault. Take charge of the situation, remove yourself from it, get the help you need, whether it be self-help, whether it be counseling. Again, develop a strong network of friends, understand what your rights are as a victim if you have been, abused, and if your abuser is in the court system, understand your rights. They're there for a reason. And that way
It is
you can
important, though.
Yes.
A lot of times when there are people who are in these abusive relationships, it's very difficult for them to have friends because their abuser, their tormentor, won't allow it.
That or their abuser has already badmouthed you so badly that everybody thinks you're the devil incarnate. I lost a lot of friends, Jeff. I lost a lifelong friend of 30 plus years over this because he believed everything she said and didn't even want to hear my side of the story. And that's the way it's going to be. And when you go through a divorce, you're going to, your relationships with everybody changes. You may have in-laws that you like. Guess what? They're going to turn against you too. I've had
Brian,
that happen.
did the sun come up the next day?
Yes, it did, Jeff.
There you go.
Yes, it did. That's why I'm here to tell people there is hope. If you are a victim of domestic violence, men or women, there is hope. You deserve better. You can take the time to find the value in yourself, and everybody has a value. And if you don't believe it, just pick up the Bible, and God tells you right there.
Yeah. We've got about 5 minutes left in our discussion here with Brian. We have been discussing domestic violence, male surviving victims of domestic violence. And I want to say thank you very much, Brian, for coming out and opening your life into this and shedding some light on what happens and what can happen and what will happen if you have to do something. But one of the things important is that I heard you say a number of times was that you did a lot of advocating for yourself.
Yes.
And I suspect you had to do a lot of advocating because there still is that stigma that men are always the abuser or this doesn't happen to men and so forth.
Here's another thing, Jeff. It's tough for us guys to admit that we are victims of anything.
Exactly my point.
I had to bring myself. Well, I was hitting a roadblock early in the process of following the arrest. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to say it. I am a victim of domestic violence. I need to talk to so-and-so. You want to know how quick their attitude changed, Jeff? I heard it in their voice, immediate, and I started getting results. You have to say it. You've got to do it. You know why? Because in Florida, those rights are enforceable, and you can sue these people. So they know that. So if you're fortunate to live in Florida or any other state with strong victims' rights laws, use it to your benefit.
And that's the point. Victims' rights laws, strong victims' rights laws, not ones that favor only one certain kind, but ones that justice should be delved out and dished out, handed equally.
As in that video clip from that prosecutor in Miami, she's absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
The law applies equally, regardless of gender.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I apologize for the problem that we had a connection issue. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking about domestic violence, male surviving victims. I want to thank my friend Brian. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Jeff.
coming in and giving us all the help. Thank you so much. I would love to have you come back again if you can. In the meantime, we're out of time. I'm Mr. B, POLI-Ticking Mr. B. Thank you again. We'll see you all again soon. Take care.